Last week I tweeted out, anybody else excited for a new Prince of Persia game? That's how you start 2024. And Perry Graywall said, I'm excited, but is it worth $90 Canadian? Well, I've got your answer right here, Perry, and everybody else that has been looking at this game and following its progress. This is a game that's been in development for 4 years, being led by Ubisoft Montpellier. Yes, the same Montpellier studio that brought us some of the Rayman games and some of the Rabbids games, that King Kong game that they worked on with Peter Jackson, and of course the sublime Beyond Good and Evil. A lot of those same individuals, and I dug into some of the credits and looked back at some of the history that these team members have in the games industry. A lot of those people worked on this game, and this is a complete reimagining of the Prince of Persia franchise. You play as a character named Sargon, who is part of this elite group of warriors protecting Persia called the Immortals, and you get called in to help rescue the prince. So this is a very different kind of take on everything. The prince gets kidnapped, and you've got to go to this mystical mountain fortress palace area called Mount Kaf. And you go through all of these different environments to try to rescue the prince and bring peace back to Persia. And along the way, you start to notice that there are weird things happening with time, and there are all these interesting characters that are popping up, most of them coming out to kill you, but some that you get to converse with, and you're piecing together a very complex and interesting story that's interwoven through this. Now, the way that the gameplay is served up, and you can tell by just looking at this footage, it's a 2.5D Metroidvania experience. So it goes back to some early days of platform action adventuring, and it's right at home sitting right beside a game like Metroid Dread. I kept thinking about the phenomenal Metroid Dread as I was playing this phenomenal action adventure game, and I just thought it was a perfect way for Ubisoft to kind of re-envision everything and shake things up while also staying true to the roots, the 2D roots of Prince of Persia that Jordan Mechner delivered to us ages and ages ago and blew all of our freaking minds with. And I've been a big fan of the Prince of Persia games all the way along. I had the Super Nintendo version of the original Prince of Persia game. Sands of Time is still one of my favorite Prince of Persia games ever. And then even if Ubisoft has never kind of climbed to the heights of Sands of Time, since that game, they've always been very solid games. All of the Prince of Persia games have been interesting along the way. Some of them taking some real direction from Jordan Mechner's original ideas, and some of them deviating in different ways. I think it was the right move for Ubisoft to take in kind of the history of this franchise and bring us something that is very familiar, but also fresh, and most importantly, incredibly fun. It plays beautifully, this game, and what's cool is that it plays really well on a bunch of different platforms. I've been playing it on the PlayStation 5. It's buttery smooth. I love the haptics on the DualSense. I checked it out on the Portal. It looked great on the Portal, but I did have a couple of little Wi-Fi hitches, and this is a game of precision. You've got combos to pull off, and you've got puzzles to solve, and secret areas to explore that are incredibly dangerous, so you can collect the loot, and so you've got to make some quick decisions. And anytime I ever had any kind of little hitch on my Portal, it was at my peril. My little Sargon will get sliced and diced, or he'd fall, or land on spikes or something. And so I didn't play it too much on the Portal. I chose instead to go to the Nintendo Switch, where it doesn't quite look as glossy as the PlayStation 5, but it plays beautifully. It runs at 60 frames per second. It's 720p in handheld mode and 1080p docked. So it's just very fluid and fast, and it's precise. I think it felt a little bit better on the PlayStation 5, but I was really fine playing it on the Nintendo Switch, and I loved the flexibility of being able to jump up and just sort of lay back on my couch and play it in handheld mode or play it on the big screen, and I was bouncing all over the place. And so it was a treat to explore these different areas. Some of them get quite creepy and spooky, where lighting really comes into play, and you see all of these grotesque sort of elements in the background, like melted things in the background, and there's some pretty spooky looking monsters, some pretty epic scale boss fights, but there's also areas that are a lot more kind of squared off and tactical, and you've just got to be super fast navigating through these corridors where things are slamming in to kill you. So there's traps all over the freaking place. There's enemies that will pop up and sneak attack on you, or they'll come in waves and droves, and you will feel a little bit overwhelmed in certain areas, and sometimes you're going to struggle a little bit, but that's kind of the nature of Metroidvania experiences. But I think Ubisoft was really trying to open up this game and kind of kickstart this franchise again for everyone. So there are a lot of accessibility options in here. You can choose right away to have a guided mode where you'll get little icons telling you where to go, or you can choose what I chose, which is much more of an exploration type mode, which feels a lot closer to a classic Metroid or a classic Castlevania experience. And you'll see the map start to open up, and you'll see that you can peek around corners, but you don't quite have the skill set or the abilities to be able to access some of these areas. So you have to kind of keep searching around and find the right boss or find that right chest that will give you the access. And you've also got an inventory of amulets that are these little buffs that you can choose, and you can select from a whole bunch of different ones. Some of them will give you better melee attacks, maybe add to your combo meter, or give you some defensive benefits, or make you a better archer. And you can go into a forge and buff up your weapons and make them more powerful, and buff up each of your individual amulets and make them more powerful. You're finding these crystals, and you're finding these different types of coins and this ore, and sometimes you really gotta work to find all of this stuff. But you can lower the difficulty on the combat. I kept everything at kind of default at the sort of medium level, and I kept it on explore mode, and I was just blown away by how fun and engaging and tuned this experience was. You can really tell that Ubisoft Montpellier and all the developers that worked on this have been surveying the landscape. They've been playing Dead Cells. They've been playing Metroid Dread. They've been checking out Hollow Knight. All of these really cool experiences out there. Blasphemous. There's lots of great Metroidvanias out there. And so that's another feather in the cap of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, is that even in spite of the years of history of this kind of subgenre and all of the recent smashes, these indie darling type experiences out there, this still stands out. It's still really fun. And yes, there's a bit of a nostalgic kind of glow that comes off of this, because there are echoes of Sands of Time and echoes of what you remember from Prince of Persia, which I think is beautiful. Even despite all of that, this is just really tuned gameplay. It's really fun. There are better looking, more state-of-the-art, kind of impressive 3D experiences out there for sure. But this runs exactly the way that you want it to. It plays like you want it to. The weaponry items are cool. The sort of special time powers that you pick up that allow you to access different areas and handle different enemy types with different sort of supernatural abilities are so freaking fun. It's not a massive game. It's like 20-25 hours, but it's a very enticing game to play. And it's also, just like a lot of excellent Metroidvanias out there, a very replayable experience. Even if you kind of know the layout of the map and you've got an idea of where some of the secrets and stuff are going to be, it's still fun to traverse through it. It's still fun to kind of try to 100% everything. This is a very hard to put down experience. Dare I say it's a game that returns us to the Ubisoft of yore. Some of the things that we remember about Ubisoft games before they started to get super ambitious with all of their open world experiences. And I'm not trying to throw shade in that direction. It's just nice to have something that makes us remember some of the beautiful moments that video games have had, like this Prince of Persia franchise. Absolutely honors the franchise. It's an excellent pickup, whether you're playing it on Switch or PlayStation 5, and I suspect any of the other platforms that you can pick this game up for. Highly recommend Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.